to another episode of Unfiltered Romance Nights. We are your hosts, Kolleen.
And I'm Marjorie. For today's episode, we have CW Farnsworth. She writes romance novels featuring sports, strong female leads, and happy endings. Charlotte lives in Rhode Island, and when she isn't writing, spends her free time reading at the beach or snuggling with her Australian shepherd. Welcome to the podcast, and we are so excited to chat with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So congratulations on your newest release, Anti-Hero.
Thank you.
Before we jump into your world of books, let's get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm Charlotte. I write as CW Farnsworth. Anti-Hero, as you just mentioned, was my latest release as part of my Billionaire series, but I've also written Small Town. I have a lot of sports, some Western, Mafia. I've bounced around a lot sort of within the contemporary romance genre. I first started writing in 2020. I just graduated college and was looking for a bit of a creative outlet as I was sort of living in the real world 9 to 5. I was enjoying my day job, but it didn't really have a creative component to it. And so I never seriously considered being an author. It wasn't a career path that I sort of saw myself embarking on, but I'd grown up as an avid reader, always loved books, and always had story ideas in my head. And so I did sit down and start writing one of them in the evenings after work. Became sort of my me time, just sort of my happy place to work on that. And so that became my first book, which I did not publish at the time. I didn't know how to go about that process. It's daunting. Even now it's daunting, but it's especially daunting when it's your first time. And so I just started another book because I enjoyed that process of writing so much. And it was, again, just sort of a creative fulfillment for me. And when I finished that book, I sort of got to the realization that maybe I should share it in the world and see if anyone else enjoyed it rather than just sitting as a file on my laptop. Wasn't doing anything for anyone really. And it was just kind of a fun idea. It was a hobby. I was, technically be a published author if I put it out in the world. And so I did a little research into the self-publishing process and made an account and published that book, which was my debut for Months 3 Words. It's a college royalty kind of enemies to lovers romance. And I put that out with no arcs, no social media, nothing that I now know you're supposed to do as a debut author. And miraculously, some readers found it and reached out through a very basic website that I had made and asked if I had other titles. And so I started the process all over again and kept putting books out. And I'm coming up on 2 years as a full-time author this August.
That's amazing.
It's a really been a whirlwind looking back on it now. I feel very lucky.
So is this something you are able to do full-time now?
I am, yeah. I'm about to be 2 years full-time.
Oh, that's amazing. I think that's the goal. That's the ultimate goal. And it's amazing because you said like your 9 to 5 job, although paid the bills, it wasn't a creative outlet for you. So I love that.
Yeah, it was a scary leap at the time. I won't lie. It was a big change. It basically got to the point where I couldn't keep doing both. I'm in such awe of authors who juggle it, and it's a lot on its own. It's even more when you're doing that with another job. And so it had been financially feasible for a while. I was making a lot more at writing than I was at my day job, but it was, again, writing was really a happy place for me. And so my biggest anxiety about making that change, aside from the financial component of being self-employed, was that it was scary to maybe lose that enjoyment of it. It had already reached a point where there were expectations about my books and I had a readership built. And so that automatically changes. When I first put my book out, I was truly not expecting anyone to read it. And that, really relieves a lot of the pressure when you're truly creating something for yourself. It's, you don't have that same anxiety putting it out. And so I was nervous about kind of losing that component of it that felt like mine at the time, but also, again, it was really hard to juggle both. And I'm so lucky that it was even an option for me to consider that. So no regrets looking back that I made that change.
Now, and I imagine that's with being a writer, you have to, when you have a 9 to 5, you have to be in at 9. You've got tasks and things that you need to do. Do you kind of do the same thing with your writing? Like it's very structured?
I try to. It
Yeah.
varies, to be perfectly honest. It depends on the book, it depends on my deadlines. There's so much more to being an author than simply writing the book. There's social media, there's emails, there's contracts, there's audio approval, there's cover approvals, there's just a lot of steps behind the scenes, and a lot of the people on my team book up very far in advance, and so I'm planning out, like, I know the rest of my 2025 schedule at this point. I know my entire 2026 schedule at this point. So there's a lot of planning that goes into it, and so I like to stay busy. I like to put out as many books as I can, and so I plan as far in advance as I can. So there are sort of these big touchstones of this book is due on this date, this book comes out on this date, and then that process repeats. But there's, like, within that, my day to day looks very different. So one day I may have to answer emails for 4 hours, and I might barely check email the next day because I've cleared all of that admin stuff out in one swoop. If a book is due very imminently, I get started at 6, I've read until midnight. Like, I work
Oh, wow.
very, very crazy stretches in, like, that kind of final push phase right before a book is due to either my beta readers or to the editor or due to the publisher. There's sort of always that final push, no matter how much you plan ahead, where it's your last chance to make any changes to the book, really, or to make some final changes to the book. And so I'm the type of person where I can't let it go until I have to. And so I'm like, as long as it's still in my possession and I can make these changes, I'm going to reread this chapter, even if I don't change a single word, type of thing. And so, yeah, it varies. There are sort of ebbs and flows within each book where it's in different stages of, if I'm drafting a book, then I'll work, I'll try to be more reasonable and work 4 hours in the morning and then take a break and do social media in the afternoon, and then maybe write one more chapter, but maybe not.
Okay.
And sort of log out at 4 and take my dog for a walk and sort of relax in the evening. And then there are also days where a book is about to be due and I'm working insane hours. So it varies. It's, I'd say one of the blessings of self-employment is you do get to set your own schedule for the most part. And so that's wonderful in some days. And it's also hard on some days because you're never finished when you work for yourself. There's always, even when the book's finished, I can be posting stuff on social media or I can be catching up on other things. There's always more that can be done. And so that can be a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine it's like it could, yes, you're like self-employed, like you make your own hours, but it's still kind of stressful because you still have to keep yourself in task, like making sure you're actually working and not just like, oh, I'm free to do anything.
Yeah, it took a little adjusting for sure, making the transition to it, because it is very different than your more typical workday.
Now I know you said you're pretty much busy with your writing and all the other admin stuff that you do. If you like get a downtime of like where you can read a book, do you have like a go-to authors that you read?
I have a lot. I don't know if I can list one. I just did an event with Elizabeth O'Rourke at the Ripped Bodice in Brooklyn a couple weeks ago to celebrate Antihero's release, and she is one of my favorite authors. I've read everything she has written. I do bounce around a lot, though. I don't read entirely romance, and I love a mystery or thriller, and sometimes it's really satisfying to read something outside of your genre, or it just feels like more of a break to read something that's not a romance. But yeah, I love reading. I'm definitely a reader at heart, and I think what drew me to writing is you essentially get to write the exact book that you want to read. Like, you're customizing a story for exactly what you would want to consume as a reader. And so that is not to say that I read my own books after they've been released, because I definitely don't. But I think the writing process itself, again, is what I've really always been drawn to. And I think a large part of that is that I grew up as an avid reader. And so when you're reading a book and you think, oh, I wish this had happened, or I wish this character had said this in the moment, when you're the author of it, you get to, again, it's just entirely customize the story to what you're looking for. So when I'm in the drafting process and creating a story, I find that very fulfilling as a reader, because you're just constantly reading what you've written. And so you're sort of consuming your own work in that sense as you're working on it. So I love that aspect of it.
Yeah. Do your friends and family read your book, and are they supportive?
They are very supportive. It's a mix. It took me a while to tell family members and friends that I was doing this for a mix of reasons. Part of it is scary to when you're, putting your books out in the world. It's vulnerable, and it's an art form, it's something you created and are attached to and have a connection with. And so that is scary with strangers, but it's even scarier, I think, when it's someone who knows you in real life. And so that was a piece of it, of just being nervous to share that. And then also, I didn't want people to feel obligated to read what I've written. It was one thing I didn't like. Most of my friends were not romance readers or in that space necessarily already. And so I didn't want people to like find it out and feel this obligation to read books just because I've written them, essentially. But I've since told, everyone in my close life now knows about it. It became quite impossible to hide at a certain point. So my mom has written a lot of my books, or has read a lot of my books rather. So has a couple of my aunts. My grandmother and grandfather have each read a couple. They're all so incredibly supportive. I feel very lucky. And yes, when I told friends, despite them not being romance readers, most of them went and ordered all my books. So
Aw.
I'm very fortunate in that sense, where yes, I do feel like I've got a ton of outside support, which is yeah, it's all you can hope for.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So now we're going to switch things to all things publishing.
Okay.
So in 2024, Entangled Publishing acquired the print rights for the Rival Love series. Would you say there is a big difference between like traditional publishing versus self-publishing process-wise?
Yes, definitely. I'm hybrid, not only in the sense that some of my books are still self-published and some are trad published, but Entangled only required the print rights to 4 of my books. So those, I still hold the ebook and audio rights, although some publishers have bought the audio rights, but for them, they only hold the print rights. And so I have not fully released a book with a traditional publisher that they have. So there's 3 sort of sub format categories for each book: the ebook rights, the audio rights, and the print or paperback rights. And so you can sell all, or you can sell some of those essentially for each title. And so I sold just the print rights, which means I still hold the ebook rights for those books, and they just came out in paperback. They did new covers and they did sprayed edges, and then they each have a bonus chapter. So those books were already written and released before they acquired them. And so that process was different, where I just sent them the completed manuscript and the bonus chapters essentially. And that was a much smaller lift on my end, obviously, than doing the full book. So it has been so exciting to see my books in stores. That's obviously a dream for any author, to just be able to walk into a bookstore and see your books on the shelves. And it's, for all the upsides of self-publishing, it's very hard to distribute your books in physical bookstores.
Yeah.
When you're taking that route. And so I felt very fortunate that Entangled was willing to just buy the print rights and to sort of take over that avenue for me, because I had sort of reached a point where I'd gone as far as I could on my own in the self-publishing industry. And so that agreement just worked out really well. They've been so fabulous to work with, so supportive, and have done a lot to get my books in front of more readers, which again is always a goal. And so those 4 books, 2 have come out, 2 more will come out before the end of this year. And then next year will be my first new title with them. So I'm adding a 3rd book to my Kluvberg soccer series. And so again, they're only publishing the paperback. So I will publish the ebook and the audiobook myself, and then they'll publish the paperback simultaneously, but that'll be my new first book out with a publisher. So they're going to be much more involved in the creation process of that book. I'm working on it now, but I'm not just handing them over a complete manuscript. It's a little bit more collaborative from the beginning. So that'll be different. And then in the future, I will most likely do some more trad stuff. So nothing I can announce in that space yet. Gonna try to continue to do sort of a mix of both, because there are pros and cons to each. And so I've done a lot in the self-publishing space at this point, obviously, and so I'm hoping and planning to explore the trad space a little bit more in some different ways going forward.
Okay. Well, that's great. Yeah.
I'm kind of
Now,
curious. Do you, sorry to
no,
cut
go
you off.
ahead.
I'm curious. Do you have, like, with the, traditional publishing route for like the print rights, like the paperback, do you get at least some say for like the
Oh.
covers or?
I do. So, well, it varies publisher to publisher. Everyone's contract is different, so I can't speak for other authors. I had a lot of say in my covers with Entangled, which they've been really great and collaborative to work with. I had some specific ideas for what I wanted and for what I didn't with the covers, and they were really, really supportive of that and really took my thoughts into consideration. So I was definitely lucky in that regard. It's not a given. Certainly, there's all sorts of considerations and marketing and sort of other industry trends. There was a phase where we sort of moved away from models on covers, and obviously there's been a big trend toward illustrated. There's like just different market factors that you have to take into consideration to a certain extent to appeal to readers. But I was fortunate that they were very open to my thoughts on that.
Do you prefer a model cover or a discrete cover? Just curious.
Yeah, for me it depends on the book. So I have written in a variety of sort of subgenres, as I mentioned previously. So, like for me, a rom-com and a billionaire romance shouldn't have the same cover. Like I want to look at a cover and feel like I have a sense of not necessarily the plot of the story, but just like the vibe, the feel of it. Like I want to look at a cover and feel something that then is echoed as I read the book itself. And so I've always strived. I've done really all three. I've done discrete object-based covers for some books. I've done illustrated covers for some. I've done some with, stock images that are real people on the cover. And for me, I've obviously taken in sort of market and what appeals to readers or what's trending right now. But this is usually the cover I'm anticipating will stay on the book for a while. And I won't be changing it every time there's a trend one way or the other. And so I felt like whatever best encapsulates the book at the time that I'm releasing it, regardless of what the trend is what I'm going to go with. So yeah, again, it's really very by book for me. I have just tried to, when we're approaching the cover design process, I am usually the only one who's read the book. Again, a lot of the people I work with are booking up far in advance. And so oftentimes the cover is finished before the book itself is. I haven't sent it to beta readers. I haven't sent it to my editor yet. And so at that time, I'm really the only one who's read it and can advise in the cover process in that same way. I don't have someone who's also read it. And so I can sort of bounce ideas off of or been like, does this fit the book for you? So I've just tried to kind of learn to go with my gut on it and done what felt right. And I guess I also feel like I've tried to do a little, like, offer something for everybody the way that I bounced around. So if you hate illustrated covers, I have some covers that are not illustrated. If you love illustrated covers, I have some covers that are illustrated. So again, I've just tried to do what felt true to the book, and that has been all different categories of what authors typically choose or publishers typically choose to do covers as.
Yeah. Now, just to switch gears a little bit, out of all the books that you've written, which would you say was the most difficult? And maybe because it just emotionally took a toll, or?
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask which one's my favorite, which is always.
I was going to, but I knew you were going to say that's like saying which child is your favorite.
I know. That's usually my standard answer. Yes, I have an answer for this. It is Real Regrets, which is the second book in my Kensington's duet. It's part of that billionaire universe that Antihero is also part of. And that book, so the first book in the Kensington's world, Fake Empire, was a breakout book for me. It brought a lot of new readers. And the follow-up to that book is the main character in the first book's brother. and he's a very controversial character in the first book, and his love interest is even more so. And so I just really struggled to write that book. There were expectations on it for me, because not just that I put on myself, but from readers, because the first book had done so well. And it was just a really hard story to write. I love reading a redemption arc as a reader, but as an author, it's hard to strike that balance. I really enjoy reading characters that are a little broken and a little rough, and that just makes a story feel all the more real for me. But it can be tough to make that story satisfactory for readers. So that book was a tough one for me. I was also writing it just before so that one came out 2 years ago. It came out in 2023, right before I made the switch to writing full time, or right around that time. I can't remember the exact release date for it now. But anyway, that was just a tough transitional time for me as well, making that change and gearing up for that change, and sort of the pressure that I put on myself for it. So I finished it. It came out.
So we're going to put you on the spot again. We're not going to make it too hard, I guess. So out of all the characters in the Kensington, like the Next Generation series,
Okay.
who is your favorite couple? And then who's your favorite male main character, like separate from the couple, as well as female main character so far?
Okay. I have to be careful here, because I haven't announced there's going to be 5 books in the series.
Oh, okay. That was my next question. 5.
I have drafted them all, but I have only announced up to Wren's, which will be book 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'll say Kit and Collins are my favorite couple, because I worked on them more recently. They're fresher in my mind. Mm-hmm. And I will say, other question was the character that I like as outside of the couples. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you 2. I'll say Blythe, who is Charlie's sister, and I will say Flynn, who is Kit's best friend.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. That's funny. I know. We always got to put you on the spot.
No, I'm happy
every once in a while.
Oh, this is a good one. Whole, like all of your books, like
yeah, I know. We used to.
Oh, you were gonna do it, yeah. Yeah, I could have, yeah. That would have taken a little longer for me to answer.
All right, so you already answered the next question. There's gonna be 5 total books. So we're gonna move on to my favorite question.
Okay.
And it's, if Antihero were to become a movie, who would you pick to play Kit, and who would you pick to play Collins? Like when you wrote it, like who were you picturing? Anybody famous?
Yeah, I have very clear pictures of my characters in my head, and that actually makes it harder to fan cast, I feel like, because it's difficult to, it's similar. I had the same dilemma when I was doing stock photos on my covers. It was difficult to find, like I would have a picture in my mind already of what the character looks like, and then I'd be looking at photos of real people and trying to match those up in my head. And I feel like fan casting, it's the same, like they're real people in my head to me. And so melding that into someone who does exist in reality is always difficult. I'm trying to think of, the other issue is that I feel like all my favorite rom-coms or romantic movies came out a while ago, and so the ages.
Oh, yeah, I feel you on that. Yeah,
whoever in my mind is like 25, but they're currently 40.
I know, like Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah, he would be a good Kit. I'll be honest. He's got
that's kind of what I pictured. And then who?
I feel like Collins is a little Emma Stone to me.
Yes.
I can sort of, she's got that like assuredness, but also a little quirkiness to her.
Yeah.
And again, Emma's obviously not the right age now, but like her and Easy A, I sort of got that energy of how I pictured Collins.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Okay.
the younger version
Well,
of
for the end of
Freddie
the
Prinze.
interview, I'll mention it, but yeah, young Freddie.
Um,
He was something back in the day. I
he was
loved
always
him.
Yeah.
in he was
Mm,
always in the rom-com. Like
I know.
majority of the rom-com movies, he was kind of like the leading man for the most part. Yeah.
He sure was. I haven't seen
Mm,
anything in him in a long time. I'm not sure if he's still actively
I don't
acting
think
or not.
so.
He's gonna be on the new I Know What You Did Last Summer. He's
Oh,
gonna be
oh.
in it.
Okay.
So
Something to look forward
Hmm.
to.
hmm.
Interesting.
um okay, so I don't know if this is gonna put you on another spot again, but if you could give us 3 words to describe your books, what 3 words would you use?
Ooh. Uh,
It
this
was
is
easy up until now.
yeah. You guys should have given me those 2 questions in advance. Um, gosh, again, this is tough because I feel like I've written some books with some very different tone subject matter, so I don't have quite as consistent of
Oh,
a
so
brand as some authors do. But
let's
I
just
think
go with anti-hero then.
okay, yeah, I'll customize a little bit. I think when you asked me that, the first word that came to mind was realistic. I really try to make my books. It bothers me as a reader when there's a situation that I feel like I can't put my head in, and everyone has a different meter or metric for that. But I try to make my books, like, I'm not a huge fantasy reader, I think, partly for this reason, where it's just, if it's too removed from reality, I have a harder time picturing myself in it, and I don't enjoy the book as much if I'm not that immersed in it. And so I try to not put my characters in situations that seem too extreme or too ridiculous to a certain extent, just because that's harder for me to feel like I'm able to write it as realistically. I think I don't have one word that encapsulates this super well, but I do. You said in my bio, and I put it in there purposefully, I really try to put strong female leads in my books. That's something that's very important to me, to have that representation of women who are sort of unashamedly and proudly themselves. And I've made a point, like Fake Empire, I had never read a billionaire romance where she was a billionaire as well. It was almost always he was, and he was sort of helping her out or protecting her in some way. You know, her family needed money, or, you know, she needed something from him, and it wasn't that equal power dynamic. And so I had so much fun writing that story, in large part because of that relationship between Crew and Scarlett, who are the leads of that book, and the fact that she was on equal footing with him and was more wealthy and more established than him in some ways. And so there really wasn't that damsel in distress dynamic to it at all. And similarly with First Flight, Final Fall, which is the first book in that Klugberg soccer series I mentioned, again, female athletes were just not as common in sports romances. It was usually he's the athlete. And so again, I really wanted to create a story and a narrative where, you know, she's chasing a dream of becoming a professional athlete. And I brought up some things about, you know, the pay gap and the disparity between how we view male and female athletes in society. And that again was important to me. I loved reading sports romances, and I was having trouble finding a book where she was also an athlete, or she was the athlete. And so that was important to me, for me to write, and doesn't distill down super easily into one word to describe my books. But even in the examples where I haven't made as much of a point to sort of make her as wealthy as him as she is, or as athletic, I think I've always tried to portray women as being, you know, equal to their love interests or other halves in each book. So that's something that is important to me, and I think is hopefully a through line, you know, through any of my books if you read them.
And I appreciate that, because all too often I've read a lot of books, and maybe it's just the ones I've chosen, where it's like the girl is poor, she comes from a really bad background, and this guy is the one that comes in and saves the day. And yes, we love that, but I need for her to eventually, even by the end, be great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's great to see them grow together, and it's also great to see, I think, sort of the individual journeys of characters is also something I try to focus on, where she's not suddenly brave or in control of herself because she's met this guy. She's already on that path, or she's already, at that point in her life where she's able to stand up for herself and prioritize herself. And so, yeah, again, I just feel like that representation is important to have in books, and for especially younger women reading stories like this and wanting to sort of set those expectations in their own lives, hopefully.
Yeah, I love that.
Sorry, that was a real tangent from your short.
No, it's okay.
No.
question. I never gave you a full answer on that.
You know, we like to get to know kind of like where like mindset as far as like what you're writing and stuff for authors. It's always nice to like see different, like where it's just the usuals. It's like, oh, it's always a damsel in distress, or
Yeah.
Yeah, and those funny, those stories are fun to read for sure, and enjoyable to read for different ways. And there's, not, we all come from different backgrounds and points in our lives, and some of us are, just in disadvantaged positions, or there's reasons for that situation that are outside of our control. But also, again, yeah, I want to also put stories out that where she's, not inferior to him in any way, even if she's just perceiving herself that way. So
Yeah.
they're just fun to write too. I love that banter of like she's giving it as good as he is, and
Oh gosh. And
or-
that was definitely Kit and
Oh,
Collins. I mean, at each other. But it was killing me because they would go at each other and then it's like, but you both like each other. So cut it.
yeah, that's always fun in the dual point of view too, where he's like saying one thing and then thinking, then you switch to his point of view and find out what he's really thinking.
Yeah.
It's always fun to play around with as an author.
And I think that's why I like dual point of view, because like you can always
Yeah.
see each other, like both characters' point of view, instead of like I've read ones where it's just a female main character, and I was just like, but I need his point of view because I need to know like what he was thinking. Like I get it, they got a happily ever after, but I still need to know what he's thinking.
Yeah. No, I totally hear you on that. And as a reader, I definitely always prefer dual point of view. But I have, like, First Flight, Final Fall, for example, it's all single point of view aside from his perspective in the epilogue. And it is, for me, it just depends on the book. Like, again, that really felt like her story. And I wanted to tell the tale of, like, a, competitive athlete who was really chasing this goal in her life and had sort of sacrificed everything else in pursuit of it. And there is also, I have to say, something kind of fun about not knowing what he's thinking is you can also, like, aside from that perspective switch where you're wondering what he's thinking and then you get to get a glimpse of it yourself, if you're sort of always in suspense in that story where you never, if it's all her perspective, you're seeing it through her eyes. And so you're always kind of wondering what he's thinking as well. I think can also be fun to play around with. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mostly write dual point of view, but I do throw in a single every now and again. Just to keep things interesting.
Yeah, switch it up. So like out of all the books that you've already written, are there any like genres or subgenres or tropes that you haven't written yet that you would like to write?
Yeah, so I have to be a little careful in this because I'm working on books right now that have some trope that sort of answer your question that I haven't revealed details on yet. I don't see myself, well, I shouldn't say that. I have ideas outside of contemporary romance that I would like to pursue at some point. I think I've bounced around a lot within it because I'm definitely a mood writer, and so I struggle with even when I'm writing within a series, I usually put out a book that's slightly different in between. Like Antihero didn't come out right after False God for a reason, because I wanted some space from the billionaire world, and I have a lot of admiration for authors who keep a consistent brand and who can, put out, books that are set in the same world or have a similar feel one after another, because that's something I really struggle with. I need just kind of a break and a refresh to write something different in between. And so I've used that again as just sort of a refresh and have honestly pursued a lot of the sort of side avenues that I wanted to. I wrote a mafia romance that was a standalone, intended to be a standalone at the time. I get a lot of readers asking for more books in that world, which I haven't decided if I will do again. I've dabbled with the idea of sort of swerving more into romantic suspense because, again, I'm a big mystery thriller reader, and so kind of melding what I've written and what I read intrigues me. So yeah, you can probably tell I'm being careful not to commit to anything.
I know. I'm waiting for a slip up.
I'm a terrible secret keeper. It's one of the big struggles.
Okay.
I
don't want you to get in trouble.
What a book will be. I really want to spill the beans on it, and I've had to learn some patience because I can't write a book as quickly as I come up with the tropes for it. So, yeah, I'm not won't commit to too much now, but yeah, I do definitely have ideas. I like to do some things fresh and different and try to challenge myself and do things that I haven't previously. So you should expect some variety in the future.
Okay. What about any special editions? Anything planned to come out? Any special editions?
I will likely do some signing exclusives for 2026. But I haven't decided which books so I don't have anything terribly concrete to announce there. No.
Okay. Yeah.
But I do try to do something. I did covers. I did alternate covers for my Holt Hockey series and for Fake Empire and for Left Field Love, which is my small town baseball romance, for 2025 signings. And those are all going to go up on my website shortly, actually, for anyone who didn't get to see me at a signing last year. And then I'd like to do I'll probably do 3 more titles for 2026. So those announcements will probably be over the fall, winter.
Okay.
Are you attending any book signings this year or next year that are planned already that you can announce?
Yeah. I do not have any larger signings planned for the end of this year. I will be at Wild and Windy Phoenix next February is the one that has been announced, and I'll do a couple more, but those haven't been announced yet. So stay tuned for that.
We're trying here. No, I'm kidding. Trying to get you to tell us the secrets. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode. I don't know about you, but I had a great time. And
as well. Thanks for chatting with me.
It was great to get into the mind of the author and publishing. And so congratulations again on your newest release, Anti-Hero. I think I've read it, and I think everybody needs to check it out for sure. Be sure to follow us on our socials and make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any of our new episodes. If there are any authors you'd like to see or any topics you'd like us to discuss on the podcast, you can send us a DM on Instagram at Unfiltered Romance Nights. That's all. See you next time.